Shalom Yerushalayim. Zeu shari Rashechem.
Shalom, everyone, and nearly Shabbat Shalom. Today is Friday, it's March the 15th, and today is also the 5th day of the Hebrew month of Adar, the second Adar. And this week, in this Shabbat, we're going to be reading the final portion in the book of Exodus, which starts on chapter 38, verse 21, and all the way to the end of the book of Exodus. And we see that a meaningful part from the book of Exodus right towards the end, starting from chapter 25 all the way to the end, with a little break in the middle. We basically read about the tabernacle. We've talked about this on previous weeks. The tabernacle, the materials that needed to be collected, to be given, to be donated. Every man of willing heart, and all the people with wisdom in their hearts to do and to build and to sew, and all the metals and fabrics and gemstones and all sorts of things in order to build a house for the Lord. And on previous weeks, we've covered this house of the Lord from various angles. We asked the question, why does the Lord even need a house? I mean, is this the spiritual Lord? Is this the everlasting Lord that we all claim that we worship? A Lord which is interested in gemstones, in gold and silver and bronze? I mean, isn't it exactly like the idols that others are worshiping? All made out of different kinds of materials, and worth anything more. Is this the Lord that we worship? And so we covered this element, this principle of having a house in which the manifest presence is the most tangible one. We talked about the Holy of Holies and the different artifacts. And this time, this portion is usually the one read right before the holiday of Purim. The holiday of Purim, which all of it is described in the book of Esther, is going to be taking place next week. And when we come to read the book of Esther, we find something very interesting. Right at the beginning, we see a description about the king's wealth. King Xerxes is throwing a big party, a big feast for 6 months. 180 days. He has been inviting all the people in the empire, the Persian Empire, 127 states. All the important people came, and after 6 months, after 180 days, they added 7 more days for all the people in the empire, the designated people, the important people, and also the simple people. Everybody had to take part and join in and celebrate with the king. When we read that, we see that King Xerxes had the intention of sharing and exposing, demonstrating, maybe bragging with all of the splendor that was in his belongings, that he possessed. And when we see the list of materials that is included right there at the beginning of the book of Esther, we find that list astonishingly and surprisingly similar to the list of materials which were collected for building the tabernacle. And we find that list twice in the book of Exodus, once in chapter 25 and also another time in chapter 35 at the beginning of last week's portion. So we see this whole chunk of this whole big episode of the book of Exodus talking about the tabernacle, and then we find almost exactly the same description when we describe the kind of splendor that the king possessed in Persia, a non-Jewish king. And we kind of go, so what is the connection here? Why did Mordecai and Esther, why did they write it like this? Why did they almost copy it from the book of Exodus? What is the meaning? The tabernacle was many years before the Persian Empire. How can it be the same thing when we talk about King Xerxes' splendor in his palace? And the answer is that the book of Esther was written in a code. It was written as a historical document for the archives of the king. It wasn't written as a biblical book. We can see that the book does say that, that the king gave his ring, and they had to write everything that happened, and they kept it in the king's archives, etc. And Mordechai and Esther, in order to pass on a message about everything that happened during those days, the miracle of Purim, they had to write it in a code. They couldn't write the name of God, and that's why it's the only book in the Bible in which the name of God is not mentioned. It's not included. How can it be a book in the Bible, no mentioning of the name of God? Because it wasn't written as a biblical book. They wrote it in a code so that we will be able to understand, we will be able to compare it with the scriptures that we know, that we hold on to, and get the message in between the lines without anybody else being able to do that. And when we go to the book of Esther, the first chapter, and we read that list of materials, we understand that Mordechai and Esther wanted to convey to us the message that those materials were looted from the first temple. The Babylonians, they were the ones to destroy first temple. King Nebuchadnezzar destroyed it, he burned it, and they looted all the materials and all the artifacts. They looted it and brought it to Babylon. Very soon after, the Persians took over Babylon, maybe as a punishment to the Babylonians for doing what they had done. But after the Persians took over Babylon, and of course we know the famous Cyrus declaration. Cyrus was the king, and after Cyrus came Xerxes. Xerxes still held in his basement. He still held the lost fortune and the lost materials that came from the temple. The temple was built with the inspiration of the tabernacle, which came before it. So we find this development, if we can say, from the tabernacle into the temple, and from the temple it went to the diaspora to be in the hands of the Babylonians and later by the hands of the Persians. And here we find a very strong connection. I mean, without getting this description in the book of Exodus, we have less of ability to understand the similarity with the book of Esther and everything that happened there. The days of Purim are days in which everything gets turned around. Everything that we think, we see it as negative, we see it as like the roads are blocked and like there's no passing through. The days of Purim prove to us that it's just the other way around. It's just everything is on the contrary. Just as Haman thought to annihilate and kill all the Jewish people on one day, that particular day that he chose for that one day of terrible massacre, genocide to the entire Jewish nation, that was the day that the Jewish people defeated their enemies in the end. And I wish and pray that in these days of Purim, just as we see a reflection of the tabernacle from the weekly portion being reflected in the book of Esther, may we continue to see that reflection in everything that happened in the days of Purim, the miracle of Purim, of everything being turned around to take place now in our time. Shabbat Shalom and a happy Purim.
בדממה ניתן לשמוע את קולו של אלוהים. בבכייך די תמיד, כי בוכה הוא איתך. רואה הוא את הדמעות בעינייך. שומע הוא לתפילות הבוקעות ממך. הוא אינו יכול לשכוח את עמו. הוא אינו יכול לשכוח אותך ישראל. cannot forget his people. אל תפחדי, אהובתי, את לא תיפלי אל התהום, אלא תראי ידיי האוהבות, אלייך מושטות. אני יודע את כאבך, בבכייך בוכה אני. בואי עכשיו בדממה שמעי את קולו של אהובך. איני יכול לשכוח את עמי. איני יכול לשכוח ישראל שלי. איני יכול לשכוח את עמי. איני יכול לשכוח ישראל שלי. אני אוהב אותך. אני אוהב אותך.